mama, something's wrong. It's cold for a summer night. I feel there's something far beyond what is in my sight. I don't know if we're safe here. I don't think we should stay here. Dear mama, something's wrong. It's cold for a summer night. There must be something in the water that's making us all this away. So tell your mothers and your daughters they better stay away. 'Cause out here there's something strange.
All right. What's up, everybody? Doug here with Leaving the Dream. As you guys know, I love having guests on the show, and I've always wanted to have more guests on the show. You guys have asked about that a lot. Specifically, I like to have people on the show who've had an influence in my life in some way or another, or people who are connected to Hawaii, or people who are connected to law enforcement. That's typically the vein in which we work here at Leaving the Dream. I'm so excited about today's podcast. I met this incredible dude last week. We made a connection. He told me his story. It's a familiar story to big city cops, but his story takes a turn. It caught me off guard when I first heard it. It's scary. It's extraordinary, but it's definitely unforgettable. And I think you guys will want to hear it. I'm not going to tell it for him though. So today I want to introduce you to former Detroit police officer, James Kisselburg. Aloha, James. Welcome to Leaving the Dream.
How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for agreeing to do this.
Oh, not a problem. My pleasure.
So we met at my son's birthday party a little over a week ago. I got introduced to you and immediately you shared your story with me. My wife was taken aback because she's like, I can't believe that I'm hearing what I'm hearing. To me, it made sense because I had a connection with you. I understood what you were talking about. And to me, it wasn't so out of the ordinary. But when it got all crazy, I thought to myself, man, this dude just told me maybe the craziest story that a single person has ever told me ever. Why did you share that with me so quick?
You know, I kind of asked myself the same question, to be honest. I think it's probably because since I've been out of law enforcement and since I've retired, you know, I don't associate with cops hardly at all anymore. And it's just something very odd once you told me you used to be an officer. It was just like that, like a fraternal instinct just kicked in. I just started chatting just like it would if I was with my old partners almost. It was just that quick of a bond.
I feel the same way. And it's not just the cop thing, because I have met hundreds of cops since I left the department. Yeah,
I will say it's not just a cop thing, but it's even your languages you use. I could tell that there's a difference between. There's nothing wrong against suburb cops or anything, but you know, usually bigger city cops, they deal with a lot more, and they understand, or they just different interactions sometimes. And
right.
And I could tell that you'd definitely been in it just because it was just like, just by the way you reacted, the way you spoke, different things. It was the real deal. So it just made me feel comfortable.
We can tell, right? That's right. Listen, I've met cops, and you know how it is. It's awkward. I'm sure you've dealt with it, where my family, who aren't police officers or whatever, I'll come to a party or I'll meet one of their friends or whatever, like, yeah, this is my nephew. He's a cop or whatever. First of all, I'm not a cop anymore. And they still, within the last 2 weeks, I've had people say, this is my cop nephew, and I'm not a police officer anymore. So it's that awkward moment where they're like, yeah, hey guys, I want you to meet my uncle or my brother or my cousin. He was a police officer in Hawaii or in Detroit.
That's the only job that you get introduced by your profession. Yeah, this is my friend Bob. He's a mechanic. You know,
right. You never hear that. It's always like, he's a cop. Half of it is them saying, don't do nothing stupid.
Yeah, I think that's the majority of it.
The other thing is, like, they do have a lot of pride in it. And, you know, there's not a lot of police, you know, when you take a look at the population, there's not a lot of cops comparatively. So the thing is, I've talked to a lot of people who are cops and not told them that I was a cop. I'm famous for not telling anyone that I was a cop. And when other cops walk in the room, I can see my family wondering if I'm going to tell them that I was a cop. And so when you walked in that room and Marco was like, this is James, he was a police officer with the Detroit Police Department, the first thing that went through my mind was, I'm not going to tell him I was a cop. I'm just going to let him do his thing and whatever. Just because you never know. Like when I was a cop, cops didn't like talking about that they were cops. And you never know if somebody was working, and you know what I mean? There's all this stuff that went on. I remember we were always told that if you see a cop in public that you know is a policeman, nod your head or whatever. In Hawaii, they throw shaka, so throw shaka, but don't go talking to him. You don't know if he's working. You don't know who he's with. You don't know if he wants anyone to know he's a cop. Is that like a similar experience? I mean, is that?
Yeah, that's that's right on the money, actually.
So I wasn't going to say nothing, but then you got thrown into it. And then I started asking questions because Marco said he'd been shot. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, if this dude's been shot, then he's legit. Like he's real deal. He worked in a dangerous city, or he's been through some stuff. And that's literally what I thought. And as soon as I heard that you were shot, I started digging. And when I started asking questions, you started answering the questions, and I was like, wow, this dude's a real deal. So then I felt comfortable to open up to you because you wouldn't feel like I was showing off talking about being a cop, and I wouldn't feel like you were showing off talking about, we actually had a connection. With sometimes it feels like, you know, one of the reasons you don't tell people is because you're like, first of all, I don't need anybody to know my business, but second of all, like they're gonna think, oh, this guy thinks he's all that because he was a cop or whatever. Like they're gonna hear stories that's gonna blow their mind. But to you and I, it was just like, these are we like to talk about these stories, but it doesn't make us feel better than people when we tell these stories. It's literally just us connecting.
Yeah, and actually, and of course, the way mine happened, there's no easy way for me to say, oh, I got shot on a traffic stop. It's because it wasn't like that. There's no real easy way. I got to kind of tell the whole thing kind of.
Right, because let's be honest, you didn't get shot on a traffic stop.
No, and once I start, if I tell the first 5 minutes of it, there's always a ton of questions that come afterwards anyway. So I usually just tell the whole thing.
But you can sum it up. You could just say, I got shot on a traffic stop, but that's not the truth.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, you're on a traffic stop. Yes, you got shot, but there's 100 other things involved. There's someone getting shot on a traffic stop can look a lot different than what it looked like for you.
Majority of the citizens, when they hear police officers get shot, they think of the movies, how police officers get shot, how, you know, they get shot in the leg and they still karate kick you 15 times. But in reality, it's just real quick and that's it. This particular situation, mine was kind of like a movie. I was karate kicking nobody, but I mean, very long and drawn out, which your average police shooting lasts, I think they say, less than 2 minutes from the time the shooting starts till it's over with, and usually somebody's on the way to the hospital. And mine lasted 15 minutes or something like that, if not longer. I can't remember exactly the time frame.
Before we get into your incredible story, let's just talk a bit about your life leading up to 2017. Where are you from?
I'm from Ypsilanti, Michigan.
Is that a big city?
Right there. It's not as big as like Detroit, nothing like that, but it's not a little podunk town. But
would you call it inner city, or was it, when you grew up there, was it country?
You know what? I definitely, it's not country, but I thought it was city life until I went to Detroit, and I wasn't even close to that.
Yeah.
But and I joined the Detroit Police Department in 1998.
1998. Why'd you go into police work?
You know, that's something that's always just drawn me to it. Actually, I've always enjoyed helping people, and I remember one time, I can't remember how old I was, but I remember trying to think what I want to do when I grow up. And the two things that I could think of, I really enjoyed. I used to ride semi-pro rodeo. I used to ride bulls for a living. So I love the country life, love guns, I love helping people. Put it all together. Share. You have old cowboy movies, so I became a cop. You know.
Wow. See, I never wanted to be a cop. But I wanted to move to Hawaii, and it was the first opportunity that I could take. And it worked out really great. It was the best job ever. To this day, it was the best job I ever had. I felt like I didn't work for 7 years. People pay to do what I did every year, chasing bad guys, riding ATVs, I'm sure you've done crazy stuff. And
never a job to me.
Right. It was never a job. It was amazing. It was like, I was excited to go to work every single day. I never wanted to be a cop. So it's interesting to me to talk to somebody who wanted to be a policeman. It always appealed to you. How did it come up? Did you just apply? Like, were they hiring, or did you just apply?
Yeah, no, I was going to college for it. I was putting myself through college, and then in the newspaper, City of Detroit was hiring. They are the only police department that pay you to go through their academy. So it was going to cost me quite a bit of money to put myself through college and pay for the academy and then still find a job. So I actually applied to them with the intentions of just getting certified and bailing out of there. That was my intention. But after I was certified and started on the job, I liked it. Number one, there was a lot of action. It was nonstop. And then I actually did pretty well, and I climbed the ranks relatively quick. I did things there that I would have never been able to do out in the suburbs with that time I had.
That's similar to Hawaii because the Honolulu Police Department, they pay you to go through academy. You get hired by the police department as a full-time employee the day you start police academy, and they pay you a full salary while you're going through police academy. And they end up spending something like $100,000 on each recruit between salary and equipment and all the resources they give them. And then there are no lateral transfers. Nobody can transfer from Detroit to Honolulu up until recently. The last 2 years, they just changed it. So now anybody in any police department can apply for a lateral. And if they take you, you just slide into a spot. You might have to go through FTO or whatever. But I didn't know that about Detroit. I didn't know that they pay you to go through police academy. Is it still like that?
Yes.
Wow, what a trip.
It's because it's nobody wants to go to that city and work.
Yeah.
Because the pay is so low and the crime is so bad that nobody who went to college and put themselves through is gonna, in the right mind, go.
What is the pay for a beat cop coming out of?
Now I believe it's up to around maybe 61 to maybe 63. At the time that I joined, it was, I recall, around 55.
Okay. And it's about 61 or 63. And that's for a patrol cop coming out of FTO, coming out of academy.
That was our top pay. It took 5 years to get that top pay. So even when I joined, I think I only made 30,000.
So tell me a little bit about your career as a cop. Like, where have you been? What units have you been a part of?
Started off at the 12th precinct, just working patrol, just learning the ropes basically. And I did that for.
What does that mean with the precincts? Like, how many precincts are there?
Okay, we at the time we had 13 precincts divided up throughout the city, and since then they've reorganized it and changed them, and got away from some. And then they also have just a ridiculous amount of bureaus within the city, and that's kind of what majority of the people, when they get on, they want to find that bureau that they fit in well, and then that's what the real action really comes about.
So that's like specialized units. The bureaus are like the specialized units.
Yes. Yep.
And then the precincts are patrol.
Yep. Precincts are patrol, but then even within every precinct, there's something called special operations, and that's kind of like a notch up from patrol. And basically you dress down to plain clothes, and you had a semi-marked police car, black car, no lights or lights just in the windshield, and you didn't enter police fronts when you did special operations. You just responded to maybe stuff that you hear on the radio. You back up patrol units.
Sure. So it's like support units. You guys are supporting patrol.
Yep. You basically go out and you just go out there and you look for crime. You look for guns.
Yeah. Self-initiated.
Yes.
That's kind of what in Honolulu, you got patrol. They're the backbone of the department. My hat's off to the patrol cops. Like, there's more glory and fun in like support units or, the specialized units where you're not responding to the radio. But let's be honest, man, it's the dudes on patrol answering those calls that absolutely are the backbone. There's a certain amount of pride too. Like, you meet those dudes who they've been on patrol their whole career and they're going to stay on patrol the whole career. And they're like the infantry of the army or whatever, right? They take a lot of pride in being infantry.
Yeah. Once they get to that certain point, they have no intention of leaving it.
Yeah. And they kind of feel like they're selling out a little bit. I noticed, but mostly probably because there's dudes that hide from patrol. There's dudes that find some units to go hide from patrol because they're either scared or they don't like getting dirty or whatever. But, at the same time, it's like, if you had the opportunity to go specialized, you'd take it. And for the most part, I found that to be the case. Would you agree?
Yeah, I'd say so. It's on the bureau. A lot of the bureaus, they're not real big. So there were a lot of times you either had to know somebody to get in there, or you had to really prove yourself to get in there. In my case, I had to prove myself 10 times over because I didn't know anybody. Everybody kept saying, "Oh, that's a kid that's going to just go to the suburbs here any day now."
Hey, so did you drive from Ypsi? That's a long drive.
No, when I first got on the job, we had to live in the city.
Oh, really? So you had to move to Detroit when you got hired?
The first time I ever had my car broke into when I moved there.
Where did you live?
I lived off of Warren in Plainview. They actually call it Copper Canyon A lot of police officers lived in that area.
Really?
Still didn't make it safe, but
So do you still need to live in Detroit to be a Detroit cop?
no, they raised the residency probably around my 4th year into it.
Wow.
I think I was out the door southbound.
How many units have you been a part of? And how long were you a cop?
When I retired, I had about 22 and a half, 23 years on. I did patrol for about 3 years. Then I went to special operations. I did that for about 2 years. And then I went to narcotics. And I was there for a majority of my career. Undercover narcotics, I worked around 14 years maybe. And then after 14 years, I went back to patrol for about 6 months at the 3rd precinct. And then from there, I went to special operations at 3rd precinct, which all this occurred.
So, were you, when you were with narco, were you deep? Did you go deep undercover? And were you the UC or were you a handler?
Yeah, no, I was a UC. I mean, we kind of, I think Detroit handles the things, our narcotics, a lot different than probably most cities. We probably we did a lot of training with LA and some other big cities, and we were less funded, had less equipment, but we did triple the amount of raids in these large cities. Like, so Los Angeles is 4 times the size of us as Detroit was. And we were, at the time, we would do approximately 4 to 5 raids per day. And their SWAT and their narcotics, they might be due for a week, which was just amazing to me. But I'd be undercover or plain clothes, whatever, buying dope one day, and next day, they might have something going on downtown with a parade or something. They'll put us right back in uniform. I'm out there directing traffic.
So was there a dedicated narco unit? Was it like people were on patrol who were also in narco, who when stuff went down, they had to switch over?
No, when you work narcotics, that's a unit separated. We actually had a secret base, kind of a secret base, that kind of thing. They did their best to kind of keep us separated, but because the manpower was so low, whenever they had a big detail, any kind of parade, anything downtown, they had to pull everybody in.
Man, that sounds like my unit. We did all the parades. Here's the thing though, I was in Hawaii. Dude, there's parades all the time because it's a tourist destination. That's their number one GDP. It's government jobs, like basically the military, and then it's tourism. So there's parades in Waikiki all the time. And that was my unit. And so I totally get what you're talking about. I think that HPD and DPD are really similar. I went to the DetroitMich.gov website, and it says that the Detroit Police Department has 2,200 officers, and HPD has 2,100. So it's about 100 less than Detroit.
We were supposed to have, for the capita, for the people there, we should have had at least 3,500. That's probably kind of low. There was times when I was at the 3rd precinct, an entire shift, it'd be 1 car, which is mind-boggling to me.
Highland Park was like murder capital of the world for a while. There was more people killed in Highland Park. And still to this day, Highland Park, if I'm not mistaken, is the most dangerous part of Detroit. Am I right?
Yeah, I actually worked the 12th precinct, which actually bordered there. And that's what they would do. This 6 Mile was actually kind of the border between Highland Park and Detroit. And it was very common. They would always run that direction.
Yeah. Man, that's when you say that, it like stirs up memories. We had housing projects in Honolulu because it's all the entire island of Oahu is called the county of Honolulu. So there are some cities, but I worked in town, which downtown in Chinatown. But every time we had robberies or whatever, dudes would always run to the nearest housing. And so whenever there was a crime, we'd always have dudes head over to the housing to try to stop them because there's only one entrance on that side because you just knew where they were coming. And a lot of people would always say like they were getting profiled. But it's like, if they did a robbery and they ran west, we know where they were going. We're just doing good police work.
Facts are facts. Like,
facts are facts, bro.
You can dub it profiling, but if you know what's going to happen,
And I will say that the Detroit Police Department has had its fair share of corruption issues, as well as the Honolulu Police Department. I don't know if you've looked into it all or if you've ever heard of it. But we did have some crazy stuff. I may have told you a little bit before, but our police chief, the chief that was that ran the department when I was a cop, he is in prison. He reported last week for his 7-year prison sentence. You guys have had similar stuff with Kwame Kilpatrick and Detroit has got its fair share of corruption. What was it like being a cop during those times?
I can probably say I got as close to it as you can get. Of course, I'm not gonna say any names or anything, but when I was probably my 12th, 10th, 11th year in narcotics, my sergeant had left. A new sergeant came in, took over. And usually when new sergeants come in, they bring their people, and sergeant didn't want. He said he wasn't going to bring his people. I was the crew chief at the time, and me and him just wasn't jiving very well. Just couldn't quite figure out what was something. Just he wasn't rubbing me right very well, and I finally just bailed off his crew. I decided to go somewhere else, and it wasn't less than a year later when he finally got his people came over right after I left, and within a year, he's in prison, and 3 other guys are in prison. One killed himself.
Oh,
All over.
that's
Like
crazy.
that,
Yeah.
Money that came up missing, up like $1 million or so. I mean, I don't know all the specifics. We all hear what.
Yeah, you hear later.
Yeah, they got charged with that kind of thing, but yeah, and I mean, that was like, what would happen if I was stayed on that crew? I don't know.
Wow.
It sucks when that kind of stuff happens because even good guys can be swayed. I guess.
Yeah, I think everybody's got a price, and
Yeah.
depending on what you're going through, I think that's why vetting policemen is important, because I remember they were concerned. I had a little bit of debt when I became a cop, and it bothered me because I was like, man, I'm a good dude. I just made some bad financial decisions. I bought some properties during the mortgage boom, that subprime mortgage loan boom, and when everything fell apart in 2006 and 2005, I lost all my homes, so I had to foreclose on them, and my credit was destroyed. And I remember it was a big deal for them, and I remember being frustrated because I was like, yeah,
I had the same thing too.
but it makes sense, right? You can't hire a cop.
It does make sense. I mean, you don't want someone coming in that's well in debt already. That's definitely not good. But debt can come at any time in your career.
Right.
I think it's more important to have, and it's kind of hard to find it, but it's more important to find someone that has more of a strong character.
Right.
Knows that, hey, I might be in debt, but it ain't worth stealing.
Right. Exactly.
$1,000.
Yeah, you got some people can be 100,000 in debt and are never going to get out of it, still never going to steal anything. And then you got some people that could be $1,000 in debt and are going to take the drugs and sell them. And so you got to try to weed those dudes out.
It's your own moral compass that guides you.
So I got a few questions for you that I wrote down. What was the best thing about being a cop?
Best thing. No, I took pride in general of just wearing the uniform or just the badge itself. There was a lot of times where you felt like you did a lot of work and nobody still liked you. I mean, when I raided, because we were undercover and we were never on TV, it'd be where we had a mask on, so we didn't get very much recognition. So, but every once in a while, you'd raid a house, there'd be some old lady on the porch next door, and she's been terrorized for the past few years or whatever. And we'll look over at her as we're hauling everybody off, and she'll kind of give you a little thumbs up, or a smile. That can last a whole year for you sometimes. I mean, just things like that. And I think just in the pride that my kids might have had when they saw, dad's a police officer.
Right. What's the worst thing about being a cop?
The worst, the hours and being away from my family is definitely the worst. Because that job it's definitely a job that you have to enjoy and have a passion for, because it doesn't pay well. You don't get treated very well by the public, because majority of it's not so much like it is now, where it seems like everybody hates the police, or a good part of people do. But all your interaction is always on a negative basis. So anytime you have an interaction with them, something bad's happening, and you get associated with that. So police aren't bad, but they're always around when bad things happen. So it's just always negative around you almost all the time. You got to be able to fight that negativity, not let it seep into your life.
Yeah, dude. I guess I spent more time with people that hated me, right? Because if I'm in my unit, I'm not hanging out with normal people. I'm not hanging out with law-abiding citizens. In my unit, it was bad guys all the time. And by bad guys, I just mean people that were breaking the law. And it's like a game. I think people think I'm being insensitive when I say that, but I think for your brain to rationalize and help you deal with the stuff that you got to do, like you have constant friction, constant conflict, and it's conflict resolution all the time. And you're constantly in danger of losing your life. And so I think your brain turns it into a game. It does become us versus them, good guys versus bad guys. And it comes down to predator prey. It's like I become the cheetah and you're the gazelle.
Yeah.
I know you're doing something bad. You're doing something bad. And then you're looking at the criminals looking at me. It's game two. They're like, yo, what can I get away with? And how can I get away from you?
We actually, the term was chalk up to the game. You got caught.
Yeah.
It's the dope game, you know.
Yeah.
You got caught. And I actually had, coming from where I lived and raised to the city, it was a level that I'd never expected. I mean, it blew my mind away, the level of crime and the level of acceptance of the crime. I remember first getting on a job and seeing the officers that had been around for a while letting things go, and I'm going, we're not gonna lock this guy up. It's only a little bit of weed, a little bit of cocaine, a small gun, sometimes even. It blew my mind. And then for the first couple of years, I was just nonstop grinding, arresting everybody, But then after a while, you realize you arrest them, they're back on the street before you do the paperwork because they ain't got room for them or something like that. And then I slowly got up to the level of those officers where I go, but then I couldn't go home and even talk about it because people I'd tell, they couldn't fathom the level of crime that I was dealing with. And I would tell them the stories and they'd be like, that's not right. You can't do that to people. You can't. I'm like, I'm not dealing with your mom and dad. I'm dealing with a criminal. Right. And I got to where I didn't even tell my story to people because they didn't understand.
You stop telling them because they just don't. It sounds like you're being mean all the time. Bad guys don't listen to, excuse me, sir, will you please sit down on the curb and keep your hands where I can see them?
And I can tell you, my shooting is an absolutely prime example of that. You always see on TV where, why are they being so mean to that guy? All he's doing is this. Well, just to the untrained eye, he's only doing this. Like when they're looking around, they're always saying, don't look around, stare forward. Well, to officers that have a lot of experience, them looking around means something. And when I get to my story, if you watch the video, even everything that he does, all the little things that the average citizen says, well, don't be mean to him. He's only doing this. They feel like the police officers are yelling at the officer, to the person or telling them to stare forward or put your hands over here. It doesn't seem like much to the person that's just watching, but to an officer that has been through this thousands of times, those little tells mean something.
You're right.
The person's looking around, looking for a way to escape, looking to see where we are, to see in case he wants to fight. I mean, there's just all kinds of things given the circumstances, and we know it, but the person standing on the sidewalk doesn't realize it.
They don't realize that. And I think a lot of what people call profiling is chalked up really to observation and indicia. It comes down to, hey, how many times have you had to put a 230-pound dude's hands behind his back and tell him he's going to jail behind bars for 15 years? Because if you're not the one doing it, then shut up. You don't know what I have to do right now. And so I'm going to use everything to my advantage. I'm going to control the situation, which is crucial. If I can keep him from looking around, he stops. You know how the brain wanders. When somebody's going to dig. You can see it in their eyes. And so what you do is you get out ahead of it. And you've done this 100 times. And so to make things safe, what people don't realize is this makes it safer for the dude you're about to arrest. So
absolutely.
He's either he's going to run through traffic. He's going to jump over that bridge. He's not going back to jail. But a normal person that doesn't think like that, they don't understand. They're like, what's he going to do? He's going to run. You're going to catch him. No. That's not how it works. He will run and jump off that building. We've seen it too many times. A dude jump from a third story or from a fire escape or jump over a bridge onto the freeway to get away. Now he's dead, causes a crash. A bunch of other people are dead, or he's got drugs or a weapon on him and it stabs him when he falls. Not to mention all the officers that you're risking who got to chase this fool.
Yeah. I can even remember as a rookie seeing some other officers handling things, like that. And real brand new. And I'm thinking, this officer's kind of tough on this guy for no reason. And, I can look back now and go, no, he wasn't tough. He just knew what he was doing, and he, like I said, cut it off before it got to that level.
Dude, I'll never forget when I was in FTO, my second phase, I was riding around with this dude. And I won't say any names, but an incredible officer. And he did so much for me. And I'll never forget, we stopped this dude and he was drunk. He was super drunk, like parked in the middle of the street with the lights off at night, going to get hit. Somebody was going to die on the freeway. And when we got him out of the car, we got him near the fence, and he was trying to take control of the situation. And the suspect wasn't listening to his commands. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, he's kind of being mean to this guy. And when I wasn't responding like he was, I remember he scolded me. He looked at me and he said, Doug, right now, we need this guy to turn around, have his hands behind his back, and this has to happen now before it gets worse. And I remember that was my moment. That was my moment as a cop where I thought, oh, this is not him being mean. He's done this 100 times and he sees what the next chapter is. He knows the next scene of this movie. And if I don't want to be a part of that next scene, I've got to do something right now. It just gets worse.
Yeah.
Take control, stop it before it gets worse. And that's like part of control in arrest tactics. Part of it is that verbal judo. Part of it is your ability to take control and make the dude do what he has to do without you forcing him to. And sometimes you got to talk to him in not such a nice manner. And when you work like in a unit you did, or you work like in a unit I did, I just dealt with those people all day. I did not deal with people like my mom or like my wife or like my kids. I would never talk to normal people like that. But the people I'm dealing with at 2 a.m. in Chinatown are up to no good. And they don't get talked to like that by their friends. Their dad didn't talk to them nice. Nobody talked to them nice. So they don't listen to, sir, can you please do this? Or can you please do that? They need to know that you are serious before things get worse for them. They get worse because they're going to make a stupid decision, and then it's going to get harder on everybody. And they end up hurt. And what they don't realize is, hey, this didn't have to go this way if you just listened to me.
Absolutely. That was actually one of the struggles I dealt with when I left narcotics going to the 3rd precinct. Was the 3rd precinct was it was kind of dubbed the retirement home, which I didn't know that at the time, but I went over there. So there are a lot of long-term patrol officers over there, basically, and they had never worked a bureau, and they actually never got a patrol ever. And when I came over there, I was still at that high gear, and they thought I was kind of off my rocker because of stuff I did, but I was still doing the narcotics stuff at patrol, kind of. And I mean, they just thought I was kind of crazy at times because I would be a little tougher with them, and they couldn't understand why I was being tough with people. But then they would see it after the fact, and they go, "Oh." Kind of reluctantly.
They learned something.
Okay.
Yeah, what they really did is they learned something. They saw a master deal with someone. You're a master communicator. They're not used to talking like that, but they're also not used to the results that you're getting. So when they say, I remember seeing it. I remember being like, oh, wow, this dude's done this before. I like this officer. Now, he loves people, never hurts nobody, but he's got to talk that way if he wants to maintain that part of his career. That's just how it works. It's
I can say, even, I mean, all my career, I mean, I've been in lots of crazy stuff, but I've never had a complaint as far as roughing up a prisoner ever in 23 years. And I mean, I've been in a lot of fights, but no complaints because they even know whatever they got, it was coming, or it was just, but no complaints ever.
That's great, man. That's a great thing. I always tell people, like, listen, I never had any use of force complaints. But I did have a few complaints. But I remember the saying was always, if you don't get sued, if you go through your career without getting a lawsuit, you're not doing your job. And
I had one or two lawsuits, but
that's because people sue the police. If you're getting arrested by the cops, you don't like them. Okay. And everyone knows that police departments settle. And
absolutely.
If you're not getting sued or you didn't get complaints, you're not doing your job, meaning you're not getting out of the car enough because you go through enough people. It's a numbers game. The guy that arrests 1,000 people in his career is going to get more complaints or more lawsuits than a dude that arrests 10. And there are dudes that have only arrested 10 people.
Yeah, there is. Detroit is actually so well known for settling their lawsuits. It's actually called the Detroit Lottery. It's just, they want you to police.
I've heard that before.
They'll actually taunt us because they want us to punch them or do something.
And that's what, and Honolulu is the same way. And right now we have cases where dudes are sued the police department. And just this week, a dude his family sued the police department, and the department settled. And in court, it was all justified. It was all good to go. But you're talking about probable cause and a reasonable doubt. But in civil litigation, you're talking about preponderance of the evidence. All you need is 50.1%.
Well, when they're settled, they don't even need that. They just,
You're right.
I talked to the city attorney. They said they settled because if they lose, even if they're only getting sued for 25,000, they have to pay the attorney fees, and that's, I guess, astronomical.
Yeah.
So I had a case where there was an area that was so bad that the feds deemed it a federal zone. So anybody get caught with a gun or dope in there, federally charged. And I caught a guy with, I think, like 100 rocks and a pistol, and we fought with him. His mom comes over there and tries to. She didn't care about him selling dope over there for, his whole life, but now he's, that's his baby. That's her baby. She tried to get him out of the handcuffs. We ended up cuffing her, and then she claimed she had a torn rotator cuff, but she couldn't prove that she worked prior to this. But now she could never work again. We charged her with interfering and disorderly, which she was found guilty of, but they still settled. She won $100,000.
$100,000. That's how it is, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. They won't even go to court. They'll just settle. HPD does the same thing. We just had a shooting. Happened to be a 16-year-old kid, but he had just robbed someone, assaulted somebody, super violent felony, stolen a car, police chase, the whole deal. They go to back up or ram a policeman, whatever it was. The kid driving the car gets shot. Everyone's in an uproar. I get it. 16-year-old boy died. Nobody wants to see that. Nobody wants to kill a kid. Cops don't want to kill a kid. Cops don't want to kill anybody. Cops don't want to shoot people. But it goes down. His family's going to sue. They're going to get a bunch of money, even if it was a justified shooting. That's just how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing to me. Even reporters on TV, they think that cops are just like TV. They just want to kill somebody or just have no problem. Like you shoot somebody, and then you're eating lunch an hour later. It's nothing like that at all.
It's not how it works.
Not at all. I mean, there's been many situations where I could have taken a life, but didn't need to. I had the edge. I was a little quicker than they were.
Yeah, whatever. I tell people there are many times where I could have killed somebody and it was justified by law.
Absolutely.
But because of my training or my experience or my comfort level or that vibe that you get, that spidey sense, the hair on the back of your neck, call it whatever it is, I didn't pull the trigger, and that person is alive and they didn't end up hurting me. But even in cases where officers are justified, people want to act like that the officer was trigger happy, not knowing that it's the biggest decision you will ever make in your whole life. And cops know it. They're not oblivious to it. Squeezing that trigger.
Yeah.
Changes everything. Your personal life, your work life, you getting investigated. They're going to forensics. It's going down. Your whole career is going to be flipped upside down. And now you're always on the internet the rest of your life. You don't want to go through that. So you're accountable for every round you send down range. And I've had that happen too, where like a young officer was like, this is justified, right? And I think people need to realize that officers have that question every single time. You are second guessing yourself. And that's when you get killed.
Absolutely. That's another thing the average person doesn't realize is they just don't. They think that we're like robots, like we got all this extra, like we're extra tough. We all fight like Mel Gibson, on Lethal Weapon, and it's nothing like that. And you're fighting a guy as high or whatever. I mean, there's a lot of times where you just gotta really put it to somebody, because if you get knocked out, your gun gets taken.
Well,
I mean, you can't afford it. I mean, I've had situations like that, and if you lose your gun, that's your life.
Not only your gun, now you got a taser.
Yeah. We didn't have tasers in our time.
Right, but I had the last few years of my career, we got a taser. We got training academy, so when they were implementing it. But the taser, same thing. That dude gets my taser.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
He's getting shot. That's how this works. Because I can't be incapacitated.
You can take your gun. Yeah.
Yep. There's always a gun in a fight that I'm involved in. If you're a cop, there's a gun involved.
And let me tell you, being incapacitated, worst thing in the world.
Well,